There's been a lot of confusion amongst the American population as to what the Tea Party movement is all about, and what the Tea Party movement will do and what they hope to do. Now, the Tea Party movement is building to become what a mass movement, and I think mass movements are very effective in changing policy, and the existence of a mass movement is a democratic thing. Now, I will compare it slightly to the civil rights movement of like the 60s and a labor movement that happened early in the 20th century. Both of these mass movements had clear goals, and if you asked people in the movement what they wanted, they would give a pretty unilateral answer. Not everybody was the same in these movements. Some people were more extreme than others, and those who were more extreme didn't really get everything they wanted. But they wouldn't argue that any of the legislation promoted or passed by these movements, or any of the changes made by these movements, were regressive or went against the goals of the movement. Not everybody was franchised after the 1960s. There are still people who were disenfranchised, who snuck under the cracks. Some sharecroppers weren't given their rights, and they were basically put in slave labor. Slave labor exists in the prisons, but the Civil Rights Act was good. The same way the National Labor Relations Act didn't give workers all the rights they wanted. I mean, it didn't get rid of capitalism. It didn't do what the labor movement entirely wanted. But you're not going to find a labor advocate who says that the NLRA is bad. Now, with the Tea Party, one thing that has been said by just about every member of the Tea Party is it's about the Constitution. Now, I've brought a Constitution, and I'm linking it to this page. And one thing I would like to ask members of the Tea Party: in what way is the Tea Party protecting the Constitution? What aspect of the Constitution is being violated, and how are they trying to fix this? One response I expect is that they're going to say taxation without representation, and they're going to say that the federal income tax is unconstitutional. Now, unfortunately for people who don't like paying income tax, the federal income tax has been ratified, and it is the 16th Amendment. There's an amendment process, and that process was followed, and now that exists. Perhaps it never should have happened. Perhaps it only happened in order to fund our participation in World War I. I don't know. But it happened, and if you want to amend the 16th Amendment, you can do that. But you're not bringing back the Constitution. That's just following the process that already exists. So I want to clear that right away. Now, I also want to address the way in which the Tea Party seems to be acting very strongly against the Constitution. The First Amendment that seems in great jeopardy is, well, the First Amendment of the Constitution. Let me read it right here. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, of the press, the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Let's look at the first part. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. Let's look at the Defense of Marriage Act. Now, marriage is a legal contract. It's also a part of the religious. It's also an institution related to the Christian church, the Muslims. Most faiths have marriage, and defense of marriage as a legal contract. There's no way to legally prohibit homosexuals from getting married. That's restricting their rights. And to not call it marriage is to give them something that, even if it's the same, separate but equal is not equal. That's been established too. And the only justification for there being something else for homosexuals, that they don't get the exact same thing, would be, as people put it, the sanctity of marriage. So in this way, the Defense of Marriage Act is very much an establishment of religion. And not only is it an establishment of religion, but and most of the Tea Party candidates, almost all of them, are in favor of the Defense of Marriage Act. Now, that's directly going against the Constitution. More indirectly, Tea Party members are often saying they want God to stay on the money. They want to put, this is a Christian nation, and we need Christian values to be represented by our leadership. Now, in many ways, they're not directly establishing religious laws, but they're pushing for a more religious state, a state that is governed by religious ideals, which goes against the spirit of the First Amendment. in the same way, they go against the spirit of the First Amendment by protesting the building of mosques, most famously the mosque near Ground Zero. But all around the country, Tea Party members are protesting mosques. Now this is restricting religion. It's restricting the free practice of religion, and even if they don't say they want a federal law restricting the building of mosques, by protesting mosques, they are acting against the spirit of the First Amendment. So that's the first way, and I would like you to say what you think. First of all, I'd like you to say what you think about these changes, about people's right to get married and be called married, and for it not to be at all different if they're gay, and for people to practice Islam, to build a mosque wherever they want, and basically for this country to be not a Christian country, for not to hear God at all, to keep God out of our political lives, because a constitutionalist would be on my side on all these issues. Now, let's go down to the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th Amendment. The 4th Amendment. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Okay? The 5th Amendment says no person shall answer for capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases assisting the land or naval forces and the militia. When in actual service in the time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Now this has a lot. It's a double jeopardy, and it's very often you'll hear people plead the 5th, not to incriminate yourself, and it's also police can't search you or arrest you or take you without giving you due process. This is very important. The 6th Amendment is in criminal prosecution to enjoy a right and speedy trial. I'm going to try and rush through this because I don't want you to spend all your time. And the 7th Amendment is all suits in common law where the value of the controversy is between $20, so blah 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 blah. You a jury. You get a jury trial if it's more than $20. Now these are very important amendments, and it's important to know that the Bill of Rights applies to every single person, whether you're a citizen or not. Your franchise determines whether you can vote or whether you can participate in the process of electing leaders or become a leader. But it doesn't apply to whether you can, whether you have these rights. These rights are inalienable, and they belong to all human beings. That's our values. These are human rights, and that's the values our country was based upon, that these are human rights. And now, this comes with the issue of the Patriot Act and the existence of Guantanamo Bay. Guantanamo Bay detainees are not given due process. They're not given the option of a trial by their peers. They are forced to answer, and it's shown they've been tortured. And there's definitely no warrants going out to find them. It's now the Patriot Act is basically allowing unwarranted search and seizure. So any constitutionalist should say we need to repeal the Patriot Act right away. Yet Tea Party candidates don't do that, and this is never heard at Tea Party meetings. They're not arguing and screaming, let's end Guantanamo, let's end the Patriot Act. This isn't happening, quite the opposite. So basically that's my video, and I would like Tea Partiers to respond to this, because I think the Constitution is very important. And while vague terms like liberty or justice can be thrown around and basically meant to mean whatever the person speaking wants them to mean, the Constitution is a document. It's fact. So if you are saying you're defending the Constitution, you should say, here, this is the part of the Constitution I am defending. And note it. I will put this I will link the Constitution, and I'm awaiting your responses.